Hi everybody, I hope this video finds you well. My name is Will, I'm a guitar player. I've been a guitar player by now for about 14 years. I went to school for it, I've done lessons and everything, but I'm not going to be playing the guitar in this video. I kind of just want to talk today. The discussion that I want to talk about is this whole crazy argument between new school guitar players and old school guitar players. And this has been going on for quite a while now, in the past, I would say about maybe a decade or two, the instrument has changed a lot, especially with artists like Polyphia, Ichikanito, Garthi Govan blew up, Tosin Abasi, people like that have really changed the instrument. And when you make music as avant-garde as that, as cutting edge, you're bound to get a lot of criticisms. I'll talk about Polyphia a little bit because I think Polyphia is probably the biggest name, the most controversial at least when it comes to that. So if you don't know, Polyphia is an instrumental progressive rock band. They're based out of they're from Texas. Two guitar players, one bassist, one drummer. And they had been making waves in progressive music for a little while, but then they came out with that album, New Levels, New Devils. And that album absolutely skyrocketed them into fame. I mean, they were an overnight sensation. Songs like Goat and stuff, the band was really on the forefront of guitar. And so with that level of fame came a lot of criticisms. And it's from people who couldn't stand that style of guitar playing. They think it's too technical, they think it's doing too much. The songs are soulless, no emotion, all that, type of discussion. And I'm here to say that I completely disagree with that. Even if the band isn't your cup of tea, there's definitely something to be learned there. Just to say all those things about it and leave it at that, it's super reductive. It's a very reductive opinion, and it's really backwards. Songs like Lift Off, that Tim Henson solo, that's one of the best guitar solos I've heard in the past decade or so. Also songs like Rich Kids, Reverie, Yas, all those songs are really good. They're really pretty. I definitely feel the emotion in those songs. But then you have these people who compare them to people like, they compare the guitar players will be like, who's better, Tim Henson or Jimi Hendrix? That's a really dumb question to ask. That's completely subjective. And it's just backwards, and it's creating this animosity that old guitar players have for new guitar players and stuff, and it's really it just doesn't make sense in the context of guitar playing and stuff. You have these people, and they'll go online and they'll say, oh well, Led Zeppelin is a much better band, Jimmy Page, you could feel the emotion through the guitar way more. Well, there's a few things wrong with that line of thinking, because sure, let's say you like Led Zeppelin a lot more than you like Polyphia. Understandable. Led Zeppelin's one of the greatest rock bands of all time, arguably the best one if you want to argue that, but that's besides the point. If you're looking for that type of music nowadays, you're gonna disappoint yourself. If you love Led Zeppelin so much, then go listen to Led Zeppelin. Don't try to find it in these newer artists. If you're listening to Tosin Abasi expecting him to sound like Jimmy Page, what are you doing? If you're listening to Tim Henson thinking he's gonna sound like Jimi Hendrix, you're just totally off. And even more so, these people, they want new music to sound like the old music so bad, but then once it happens, it's actually not that great. It's good in theory, horrible in practice. Look at the band Greta Van Fleet. That band is a carbon copy of the best of 60s and 70s classic rock, and their music isn't that good. Greta Van Fleet sounds like as if you asked an AI to make a band and then have that band make music that sounds like the 60s and the 70s. That's how soulless Greta Van Fleet sounds. And it sounds much more soulless than any Polyphia song or any Ichikanito, sorry. And so that's what that actually sounds like in practice, and it sounds terrible. But even more so, I'm not saying that Polyphia is better than your favorite artist. That's not the discussion that I'm trying to have at all. What I'm saying is that there's definitely something to be learned between these artists. Especially if you're a guitar player and you want to get better, you should acknowledge all types of guitar music, especially the music that's considered good. You know, with someone like Polyphia, you know, there's even barring the technical aspects of it, there's so much to be learned from their technicality and stuff and the songwriting style. It's counterintuitive to dismiss them outright. It really is, especially if you're actively trying to become a better guitar player, because all the other artists that these guitar players are romanticizing, you know, I mean, you know, they'll say Jimi Hendrix is so much better than Guthrie Govan or whatever. Sure, that's the same music that's been going on for like 70, 60, 70 years, something like that. So, you know, I loved classic rock when I first started playing guitar. You know, I loved Pearl Jam, and I loved Guns N' Roses, and I loved Jimi Hendrix, and I love Led Zeppelin, Eric Clapton, whatever. But 14 years later, my taste has changed, you know, and it's not because those artists have gotten worse. It's because I've become hungry for more. And not to say that that's a bad thing if you're content with that, but if you really want to become a better guitar player, the truth is that you should acknowledge Polyphia, you should acknowledge Ichiganito, you should acknowledge Jason Richardson, and all these new school guitar players, because they're so good and there's so much to be learned from them. And if you just dismissing them altogether, like as a musician, that's incredibly backwards. That's really, really backwards. There's so much to be learned from them. You're doing yourself you're doing yourself something bad, you know, if you're just dismissing them like that, because there's just so much to be learned, you know. I mean, Tim Henson's style of writing is great, because even though the song has no lyrics, no singing mostly, he takes these really, really catchy melodies on the guitar and he turns them into a chorus, and then, you know, and effectively you have the verse and the chorus through the guitars and stuff, and it's just a really new take on the instrument. So it's just backwards thinking. If you're watching this and you want to become a better guitar player, and you find yourself hating these newer artists, you don't have to like them, you know, but going out of your way to hate them and stuff, I mean, especially people like Tosin Abasi, like Polyphia, and, you know, Animals as Leaders, all those people, there's a level of respect that you have to have, even if you don't like it, because the music has broken so many rules, and it's destroyed the guitar for the better. You know, those people completely rewrote our understanding of the instrument, especially in the last few years. So to hopelessly compare it and stuff, it just doesn't make sense, you know. And this only matters if you want to become a better guitar player, which I'm sure every guitar player who's watching this does. So yeah, that's all I really wanted to say. I'd love to hear you guys talk about this in the comments, because this has been driving me crazy for the past few years now, you know, the animosity between old school and new school. It just doesn't make sense to me. There's so much to learn between both of them. Just putting them both together is so stupid and so backwards, and you're landlocking yourself, you're trapping yourself, because you're closing yourself off to a new style that will probably make you a better musician. So yeah, that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.